Taking charge of ourselves by using emotional intelligence would require us to learn a whole new thought process and also certain behavioral patterns. So, what are those? Let us see them one by one. So, first of all, learn to find your emotional triggers. These could be certain people, situations, or the environment which make us feel vulnerable and at certain times overpower us to such an extent where we feel immobilized. It's better to stay away from such sources. Secondly, learn to practice your emotional boosters. In my last article, I have already mentioned about these external and internal boosters, which we should keep handy so that we have an easy access and we can practice them on a regular basis, because they not only boost our morale but also make us feel good all the time. The third important aspect is we need to learn to see a given emotion as a choice rather than a condition of life. I like to give a simple example here. Death is a condition of life where we all feel sad and to a certain extent feel immobilized. But think of this person who was an Indian cricketer and even after his father's demise immediately went on the ground to play his World Cup match in front of the whole world and performed to the best of his ability by scoring more than a century. Yes, I'm talking about the god of Indian cricket, and that is Sachin Tendulkar. Imagine the emotional intelligence that he applied when he chose to feel composed and perform his duties, though he was not under any obligation to do so, even in such a dire condition of his life. Next in taking charge is about learning to express ourselves and not only to impress others. What I mean by this is we need to learn to express ourselves with our genuine selves without being bothered about log kya kahenge, log kya sochenge. When we start expressing ourselves in this manner, we feel less burdened and there's no emotional turmoil and there's no conflict between our heart and our heads. They are in complete symphony, and that makes our emotions and our communication more effective. The next important point is we need to learn to empathize with others and not only understand them. What I mean by empathize is in any given situation, we can always assess the other person's moods and behaviors by trying to fit into his shoes. So, thinking in his manner that if I would have been in his position, how would have I behaved, makes our relations more cordial. And that's how the emotional balance is maintained. And that's how our relations flourish. Next, about taking charge of our own selves is a very important point, that is, learn to be the change agent. We all want everything to change. The politics, the situations, the people around us, the climate, the weather, everything that we want to change. We hardly think of changing ourselves. So taking charge would require that we change ourselves to an extent where we are able to make a difference by acting in the circle of our influence. Yes, and that's the next point. So the circle of influence here is all those areas where we can make a difference by acting upon them. And most of us are stuck into the circle of concern, where we are really concerned, worried, bothered about everything that is happening around us, but we don't want to do anything to change that. So that's what I mean by learn to focus on your circle of influence, wherein you can make a difference by acting on it. That is, again, taking charge of yourselves. The next important point is learn to be in the present moment. As we all know, that the present is the most important and valuable gift that we all have got. So, in the past, even if we have done certain mistakes, we might be feeling guilty about it. And we're always worried about the future that has to come. But remember that guilt and worry are useless emotions if they go beyond a certain extent. So it's very important to live in the present and be mindful about all the gifts that we've got in the present. Mindfulness is a huge chapter and a very hard topic, which we can keep for some time later. The ninth important point here that I have mentioned in my post is learn to be learn to use positive autosuggestions and affirmations. So these autosuggestions and affirmations are all those positive sentences that we speak out to ourselves, not necessarily to others, so that we get that required confidence. So all the positive sentences that I can do it, I believe that I can do it. A simple sentence like this, when we try and repeat it as many times as possible, and every time that we repeat it with complete belief. That's the importance of autosuggestions while taking charge of ourselves. And last but not the least, learn to be assertive rather than just being defensive. So there's a very thin line between being assertive and being aggressive. Assertive means you're firm about yourselves, about your views and opinions, but at the same time, you're gentle towards expressing them to others. There's a lot into assertiveness which we can and will discuss later in my next video probably. Till then, take charge of your own selves.